Well, I'm really excited to have Pastor Tim here today. I didn't know if you guys knew this or not, but Tim and I went to high school together. He was one of those kids that was always getting me in trouble for stuff. It's like, and he was sort of like Slick Willie. He never got in trouble himself. He just leave poor kids like me holding the bag. And Tim has always been so funny and talented and warm and well-loved and liked. And it's just really a pleasure to be 46 years old and living in a community that we used to bring damage to and be linked together to do some good and to bring Christ into this community. And so I'm really excited this morning to invite Pastor Tim up to share with us and just give him a warm welcome this morning.
Thank you for showing. I love drug addicts and alcoholics. I don't know why I love drug addicts and alcoholics. A lot of people ask me why. My wife and I, the first one that we actually picked up was in 1984. So we've been doing this since 1984, and his name was Eric, and he was a heroin addict. And he just seemed like such a nice guy. He would tell you anything that you wanted to hear, and so we got involved in his life, and he just loved us, and we loved him, and I invited him over to my house, and he ended up staying with us, and we had a great time for a while. I am not used to standing behind one of these. Do I have to stand behind one of these, Gar? Or can I can scream if I had to. Do I have to stand behind this thing?
You have to stand within range so that we can hear you.
So I can yell if I'm back here or something. All right. Well, I'll do my best. I'm not accustomed to standing behind something, but that'll work. So we took in Eric in 1984. He stayed with us, and I gave him a job for a while, and he ended up leaving. And I'll say this just to try to get an idea across to you, that he was the only one that ever stole from us. We've never had anybody past that as far as we know, and we've had, at this particular point, Cindy and I were trying to talk last night, Cindy's my wife, we were trying to speak of how many that we've had in our home, and we think we've had close to 200 of them in our home, and since 1984, and we've loved every minute of it. We have 3 to 4 at a time in our home. We also have 4 children, from almost 20 on down to 11 years old. And we've had a ball. But this guy, when Eric left, he actually left with a smile on his face and everything. One day, he just didn't show up to work, and then we found out that he stole some money from us and went back to Ontario, because we were down in Southern California at the time. And we weren't that affected by his leaving, except we found out that the money that he stole came from my wife's underwear drawer. So then I'm kind of like, a little bit upset about it. And that's when the Lord dealt with me for the first time of how whatever we do it as unto the Lord, and we are not attached to the results. The results, that's God's problem. That is not our problem. So I have 2 things that I want to leave you with this morning. I want to start with, and I will leave you with them. One is, whatever you do as unto the Lord. Do not be attached to the result. Otherwise, you're going to have one mentor and quit, because you will get attached to the result. And when the result isn't what you expect, you'll walk away from it. 2, when you find yourself going through hell, keep walking. It won't last forever. Keep walking. I got to figure out which way to point this thing. Now, I want to walk you through something today, because a lot of Christians have a hard time sometimes going through the education that it takes to be able to deal with a lot of addicts. Can Christ do it? Absolutely. Can we do all things through Christ? Absolutely. He's the one that gives us strength. But there's another side of this, and that's, I really believe that we are to study to show ourselves approved. And we know that if we're going to be the workmen, and we're the ones that are going out to get the harvest, we need to know about the people that we're going after. And so it's really easy for us as Christians to say that there's a harvest out there and it is huge, but yet we're not really educated enough to be able to go out and even touch this harvest. And I think that's kind of shame on us. I'm going to skip over some of these things this morning, so to try to make it a little more in tune to you, to where you can get a lot of this. I love what I do. I really love what I do. I see a harvest where any given day, it is not a problem to bring 10, 20, 30 people to Jesus Christ in a day. The harvest is so thick out there. Some of you that work with juvenile justice, some that go into the jails, and Guard that's out there all the time, and Dale who sees a lot of this. We can go out there all day long and we can find people all day long that are searching for Christ. But they're searching for the reality in the relationship with Christ. And I really appreciate what Cheeseborough said yesterday, what Jeff Cheeseborough said last night, because it is a relationship. They have saw Christianity for years, and for some odd reason, they're not too impressed as of yet. We need to show them Christ, the relationship that we have with Christ. And they get attached to it, and they get attached to it fast, believe it or not. Okay? The first thing I want to do is kind of go over just quickly as far as the neurons that are in your body and what happens with information, because when you're dealing with an addict, you're going to be dealing with people that don't have information like you have it. They don't process information like you. They lack dopamine to excite them. They lack endorphins to be able to calm them down. They lack the serotonin to give them discipline, to be able to even get up in the morning to do anything. So you're dealing with the depressed people. You're dealing with ADD, ADHD, PTSD. You're dealing with all of these people that have more signatures behind them than doctors do, okay? And it's a serious thing. So how do you get to these people? These people that, number one, they're coming into your house. You trust them with your children. You trust them with your house. You trust them with your belongings. And yet they have a problem trusting you. Think about that. Okay? Kind of an oxymoron going on there when you talk about trust factors. You're dealing with a group of people. The average 35-year-old woman incarcerated in the 5 northern counties, if she's been incarcerated for drugs, has slept with 24 men. Now, that's a pretty serious thing. What are they searching for? What is the process that's going on in their mind? Okay? This is what I really want to talk about, because these are the people that you're going to have in your home. And it's a serious thing. Your neurons talk to each other in your brain. Anything that you do to interrupt the neurological system, to alter the way that the brain thinks, anything you do to interrupt that is going to cause a change in really who you are. And so whether or not you're taking Celexa, Paxil, Klonopin, Seroquel, Wellbutrin, Valium, whatever it is, there's something in there that's going to alter the way that you process stuff. It may have a blocker in there that blocks the pain, or it may, but it's going to allow you to think something different. We have a lady that's here today. Her husband we just sent to Calvary Ranch, but for years and years and years and years, he has been an addict. He has kind of done whatever he wanted to do, still wanted to come home to his dear wife and have a normal life, but it's only a matter of time before this person is not the person you married anymore. This person is not your child anymore. This isn't the one that you raised. Their mind has been altered. And some people think that it's not a problem, even for pot. And I want to tell you something. You have what's called glial cells in your system. Your glial cells basically cover your neurological system, and they act as insulation. And the insulation that you have over your neurological system allows information to travel very quickly. Information travels at about 140 meters per second from the brain down into the different parts of the body, and from the body back up to your brain. A person on pot, if they smoke a bowl, then you can literally trace this and find that it drops anywhere between 7, 15, 20 meters per second. So we go from 140 meters per second all the way down to 15 meters per second. And we wonder how come that when you're talking to them, they go, I don't know, whatever. Because they don't know. That's serious. So how do we approach these particular people? Inside of every one of these little neurons, approximately, you have what's called the soma, which is right in the dead center of it up here. And each one of these processes close to a 60 gig hard drive, which means you have billions of these things in your brain. Your brain is the fastest moving computer that there is. And whenever you start putting a virus in the brain, you start taking out certain neurons that are going to process that certain part of your thinking. So we have to be very careful what we do. Now, I'm going to go through a normal brain stimulation for you to try to tell you kind of what happens. On the top, we have the axon. And inside of the axon has all the transporters in the very end of it that are looking for a dendrite. They're looking to transfer that information, the transmitters, into different receptors. Okay? Now, if you want any of this in the class that we'll be having later, I actually have handouts that I'll be giving you, but you can feel free to take whatever information, or we can put this on a website. You can have it. I don't care. Inside of this particular axon up here, you have a membrane around there that's totally protected. Okay, because the fluid of the brain is positively charged. You know, it's important that anything that sits in the fluid of the brain for a period of time, any of these transmitters, if they sit in the fluid of the brain for any period of time, they're not going to be doing well at all. In fact, they won't last at all.